All right, so let's get going. Keep going with the video lecture for chapter 22. Let's keep talking about causes of industrialization. So, of course, the main cause is the development of technology, technologies that increase the speed of production of cotton textiles, right? And this allows an individual worker to produce 100 times the amount of clothing as would have been done without a machine if it was handmade. Now, this is going to also increase demand for resources. So as you're producing more and more cotton textiles, you're going to need more and more raw cotton. You're going to need more and more people growing cotton. So that's going to have a negative effect on, for example, the Americas, where Africans are going to be still being used in slavery to produce the cheapest cotton possible. Same thing's going to happen in India, because in India you have thousands and millions of workers producing goods, right? Cotton textile goods, which has always been a major export. But now the British and eventually other Europeans, they're gonna start purchasing the manufactured the final products of cotton textiles from India. Instead, they're just gonna want to purchase raw cotton. So we're gonna see increased use of slavery in the Americas, and we're gonna see a decline in India's economy because they're not going to be able to export cotton textiles because it's 100 times cheaper to make it with machine than make it by hand, which is the way India had always done it. So here's some of the two of the famous machines that were used: the spinning jenny, the flying shuttle, the mule. The end result is that these machines, as they get bigger, as they get more complicated, as they get more efficient and more expensive, they're going to be need to house in a factory. So where are you going to put the factory? You're going to put it inside a city. Why? Because a city is large enough where people can migrate from the rural areas, all right, through urbanization, and find a home and find a place to work in the cities. Now, the first factories, they tended to be built next to rivers. Why? Because a lot of these machines were water powered. So you need a flowing river to help produce energy, right? Energy that powers these machines. So the new technologies, right? The use of water power, hydro power, is going to become a more important factor. We're going to see urbanization start happening as people are going to migrate again from the rural areas to the factories. Now, the biggest technological change or technological innovation of this time period is the steam engine. And the steam engine provides mechanical power. It was created by this guy called James Watt. Now, there's others, or Watt. There's other inventors along the way, but Watt is given credit for the kind of like the most famous steam engine. Now, what is unique about steam, or the steam engine, is that it uses coal as a fuel. So you burn up the coal, it boils water, the water turns to steam. The pressure of the steam, when it is released at certain intervals, produces energy that can power these machines. So this allows for more factories to be built, and factories to be built anywhere, because they don't have to be built next to a river, because you don't need hydropower anymore since you have steam engine power. Now eventually we're going to also see that the steam engine is going to be used and added onto steamships, and of course the train or the locomotive later on. All right, other causes for industrializations. So how is it so many people are able to move from the farmlands to the cities, right? You would imagine that you need a lot of people producing food crops for this to happen, and that's exactly what occurred. In the 1600s, 1700s, early 1800s, we see what we call the Agrarian Revolution. Right? Not the agricultural revolution, which is, going way back to the Neolithic times, but this is often referred to as the Agrarian Revolution. And basically, we see a increase in scientific applications to agriculture, meaning people are going to use new techniques. They're going to start combining new crops, especially crops from the Americas that go back to the Columbian Exchange. We're going to see new technology, new tools. And the end result is that by the 1750s, there's going to be less farmers needed to be farming, because a farmer cannot produce more and more food than ever before in history. Therefore, less people have to be farmers, more people can move to the cities and work in factories. So the Agrarian Revolution increases food production, which increases the population, which increases urbanization, and provide a workforce, a labor force, for the new factory systems. Now, why else is the population growing? Medical care, medicines, right? This is a kind of continuity or a product of the scientific revolution. So people are not, sticking to medieval practices when it comes to medicine, like having leeches suck your blood if you have a disease, or start praying to God, or eating grass or whatever, for medical care. They start looking at medicines and at drugs to see what ailments, what problems they can help alleviate. And the end result is that increases in medical care through a better understanding of the human body, right? Allows people to live longer lives. So more food plus better medicine means more people. And this is what the Industrial Revolution needs. You need a large workforce. Without that workforce, who's going to be working in the factories? Now, there's also a legal cause of the Industrial Revolution. It was a law that was passed in England, and then later on in other countries, called the Enclosure Movement. And basically, in the past, there was what used to be called the common land, right? It was land that it was kind of like public. It didn't belong to anyone, but people can use it. So it was like a place, if you have a cow, where you could leave your cow. If you have some chickens, they could roam around there. And it was kind of like a commonly available land for everyone to use. Right? It was called the commons. The problem is that the governments are going to start to privatize. That means sell off the land. And they're going to sell it off to the richest people who wants to buy large tracts of land. So what we see is that these open lands, these free lands, now become private property. So now you can't go in there and you can't claim it as your own, because it belongs to someone else. So by closing off land, that means that if you were like a super poor peasant that relied on that land to grow your crops or graze your animals, now that land isn't there anymore. It's private property, right? Fences go up, peasants have to leave. So if you're a poor peasant, the poorest farmer out there, and you don't have land, and that what little land you had has now been cut off, what choice do you have? Well, there's factories, and those factories are always hiring. So the enclosure movement is also going to lead to urbanization, right? And the population is going to be more and more urbanized over time. Now, another kind of like scientific innovation during this time is the use of coke. Not the soda, not cocaine, but carbon coal. And carbon coal basically allows to increase the temperature when you are melting iron. So you have these iron ore that is, mixing with, rocks, and you put it to melt. And by applying coke to it, you basically separate all the impurities, all the, like the dirt from the iron, so that you have a more pure iron product in the end. And you, by applying coke to this process of melting the iron from iron ore into iron, the metal, you're going to increase the amount of metal you produce. So what we see is an increase, a rapid skyrocketing increase in iron production, more than ever before, right? Because of this scientific application of a chemical called coke. Later on, we're going to see that further advancements are going to occur, where steel is going to become the number one metal, and steel being a mixture of iron and coal. And steel is going to become cheaper, and the production of it is going to become faster, right? You're going to have these huge furnaces, right, producing, right, steel at a vast amount. And this is going to allow people to use steel for weapons, for buildings, right, like skyscrapers, for ships, for railroads, right? And steel becomes the main product, or the main metal of the Industrial Revolution. So iron and steel production are going to improve. The Enclosure Movement is going to kick out the peasants to go to live in the cities. More food and more medicine means population is going to grow, so everyone's going to move on to the city to find work in the factories. All right, so that's it for part 2. I'll see you next time for the next part.